The cold, sterile air of the Galactic Union's research facility buzzed with anticipation. Dr. Tavok tapped his claws on the edge of his workstation, watching the holographic display flicker as it ran its analysis. He had always been an advocate of deep biological studies across the species of the galaxy, each offering their own fascinating quirks, but humanity had long been written off as primitive, unsophisticated, and unspectacular. Until now. "Run it again," Tavok hissed, his voice tight with disbelief. The lab's AI assistant blinked, sending its confirmation chirp before the scanner reanalyzed the data. "Affirmative, Dr. Adrenaline analysis confirmed." The findings had been uncovered by pure accident. A routine health assessment of a human diplomat had led to the discovery that adrenaline, a simple hormone coursing through their veins, created an explosive surge in strength, speed, and pain resistance. Not only did it enhance their physical capabilities, it also sharpened their mental acuity, allowing them to make lightning-fast decisions under stress. He stood back, watching the replay of the test data on a nearby monitor. The diplomat in question had been placed under simulated combat conditions during a physical exercise. What happened next had the entire research team in awe. His pulse skyrocketed, his muscles tightened, and his body appeared to defy the normal limits of biology. It was as if nature itself had handed humanity a biological trigger for temporary superhuman abilities. Dr. Tavok knew the implications were immense. If the Union Council gets hold of this... Suddenly, the lab door slid open with a pneumatic hiss, and a towering figure stepped through. Commander Vrax, a Thalaxian with gleaming, scaled skin and the cold gaze of a predator, loomed into the room. His reputation as the galaxy's most feared military strategist preceded him, and Tavok felt the weight of his presence immediately. "You found something disturbing, haven't you, Doctor?" Vrax's deep, guttural voice filled the lab. Tavok hesitated before speaking, his voice low. "More than disturbing, Commander. Humanity's adrenaline isn't just a quirk of evolution, it's a weapon." Vrax's eyes gleamed with interest as he took a step closer to the console, watching the monitor as it replayed the human's performance. The sound of muscles tearing against simulated resistance, bones nearly cracking but holding firm. The human diplomat's face, once strained, now focused with a terrifying intensity as he plowed through the obstacle course faster than the galaxy's top-trained athletes. "How is it that they possess this power?" Vrax muttered. "Their military? Their leadership must already be exploiting this." Tavok shook his head. The subject in question wasn't a soldier. He was simply under stress. This is what they're capable of naturally. A silence fell between the two, the implications settling heavily on their minds. "They can't be allowed to continue this unchecked," Vrax stated coldly. "Imagine a battalion of soldiers with this power surging through them. No army could stand against that." Tavok sighed, pulling up a series of records. "There's more. I've been reviewing historical data on humanity's wars, conflicts, and survival against all odds. Every major victory seems to coincide with extreme levels of this adrenaline activity. From ancient times to their modern-day battles. It's not just a biological response, it's part of their culture." Vrax's reptilian eyes narrowed. "You're suggesting it's more than biology?" Tavok nodded. "Adrenaline has shaped their entire species, Commander. It's not just a tool, it's instinctual. They've evolved to use it, rely on it, and become something terrifyingly powerful in the right situations. That makes them unpredictable. A human backed into a corner could easily outmatch an entire squadron of Thalaxian warriors." For a moment, Vrax was silent, his mind working through the potential threat. He had always believed in calculated warfare, superior tactics, and overwhelming force. But the idea that a species could harness raw biological fury was unsettling, especially since this species had been deemed irrelevant in the grand scope of galactic affairs for so long. "They must be contained," Vrax finally said, his voice hard with resolution. "The Union must learn of this, and we will find ways to neutralize it before it becomes a galactic crisis." But Tavok was already on edge. He could sense the storm brewing. Humanity was no longer a mere curiosity. They were now the center of a dilemma, a species whose unique biology could turn them into the galaxy's most dangerous soldiers. "Commander," Tavok ventured cautiously, "the human representatives will be here within the week for diplomatic talks. If we move too fast, then we'll be subtle," Vrax interrupted. "We can't risk an open confrontation yet. I'll mobilize a task force to investigate their military further. If this adrenaline advantage is something they can harness at will, then the galaxy has a problem, and we may not have much time before they realize their potential." Tavok's unease deepened. He had seen firsthand what humanity could do under stress, but it wasn't just about their physiology, it was about their will to survive, to fight, and to overcome impossible odds. The adrenaline was merely a catalyst. Their true strength came from something deeper, something that couldn't easily be contained or controlled. As the commander left, Tavok couldn't help but wonder, was this the beginning of humanity's rise to galactic dominance, or would it lead to their eventual downfall? He stared at the holographic display, watching the human diplomat's face frozen in mid-run, veins bulging and muscles taut, as if defying nature itself. "Adrenaline," Tavok whispered to himself, "the galaxy's most dangerous serum." Commander Vrax wasted no time in assembling his task force. He had called upon some of the most ruthless and efficient operatives in the Union's intelligence network. Their mission was clear: dig deeper into humanity's military structure, find out how far the reach of this adrenaline advantage went, and, if necessary, sabotage it. One of the operatives, a seasoned Shrellian named Rin, had already set up surveillance on Earth. The Shrellians were known for their adaptability and their natural ability to blend into different cultures, making Rin the perfect candidate for the job. His human disguise was impeccable. He had spent months preparing for this, learning their mannerisms, their way of speaking. To the untrained eye, he was just another Earth-dwelling observer, a diplomat even, but his true purpose was far more sinister. Rin's mission was simple: observe, report, and disrupt if necessary. He had been watching the humans for weeks now, and while they seemed as ordinary as ever, attending meetings, discussing trade deals, and sharing drinks, they were anything but. His focus now was on a key military outpost in the mountains of what the humans called Colorado. The base was a hub of activity, hosting high-ranking officials, strategists, and soldiers. But Rin's attention was drawn to one man in particular, Captain Aaron Draven. Draven was not like the others. His file indicated that he had been a decorated soldier in numerous off-world skirmishes, displaying incredible combat prowess. His name kept surfacing in Union intelligence reports, each time attached to incidents where his team had emerged victorious against overwhelming odds. Rin had his suspicions: if anyone had mastered the adrenaline advantage, it was Draven. Under the cover of night, Rin slipped into the outer perimeter of the base. He moved like a shadow, his form melding with the surrounding terrain. He'd studied the patterns, the guards, the cameras. The humans had evolved rapidly in technology, but they still lacked the refined stealth tech that the Union had mastered millennia ago. The plan was simple: get close enough to gather key data on Draven. Something as small as a blood sample or detailed scans of his brain activity during combat could unlock the secrets to how the humans wielded this adrenaline surge so effectively. He reached the edge of the training grounds, crouching low behind a row of supply crates, his optics zooming in on the figures ahead. Draven and his squad were in the middle of a live combat exercise. The soldiers were focused, moving with the precision of a well-trained unit, but it was Draven who stood out. Every movement was deliberate, calculated, and yet there was something primal about the way he carried himself. His eyes darted across the field, anticipating every possible angle of attack, and his body reacted with speed that seemed almost unnatural. Suddenly, the simulation shifted. A new threat appeared: simulated enemy soldiers closing in. Rin watched as Draven's pulse spiked. It was happening. Draven's pupils dilated, his muscles tensed, and a surge of energy seemed to course through him. With a speed that defied logic, he sprinted across the field, outpacing even the fastest of his team. His reflexes were sharper, his strikes more powerful. One by one, the simulated enemies fell, as if they were moving in slow motion compared to Draven's enhanced reactions. Rin's scanners were picking up something unusual, a chemical shift in Draven's body. The adrenaline surge was unmistakable. It wasn't just a spike in strength or speed. His brain activity was off the charts, processing information faster than any known species could handle. It was as if Draven was tapping into something deeper, something that no amount of training could replicate. Rin activated his data recorders, capturing every second of the performance. This would be the key to unlocking humanity's secret. But just as he was about to finish the recording, his heart froze. Draven had stopped mid-motion. He wasn't looking at his teammates or the simulated enemies. He was looking directly at Rin. The two locked eyes for a split second, and Rin's blood ran cold. There was no way Draven could have seen him, not from this distance, not in the darkness, not with all of Rin's cloaking technology in place. But Draven was looking right at him. Before Rin could react, Draven's hand shot up to his comm unit. "We've got a situation," he said calmly, his voice cutting through the night air. "Perimeter breach. Unknown entity, east side." Rin cursed under his breath. He had been made. He didn't know how, but it didn't matter now. His mission had just gone from simple observation to full-blown escape. He activated his cloaking field and bolted from his position, moving faster than any human could follow. But as he ran, something strange happened. His sensors were picking up movement, fast movement. Draven was coming after him, and he wasn't slowing down. Rin pushed his speed to the limit, dodging between trees and over rocks, his body moving with the fluidity of a trained infiltrator. But no matter how fast he moved, Draven was right behind him, gaining ground with every second. This wasn't possible. No human should be able to keep up with a Shrellian at full sprint, let alone match their agility. But Draven wasn't just keeping up, he was closing in. Rin's mind raced. He had to get out of here. If Draven caught him, the Union's entire operation could be compromised. And worse, the humans would know that the Union was aware of their secret. He spotted a narrow ravine up ahead, a drop that would be impossible for any human to follow without injury. It was his only chance. With one final burst of speed, Rin leapt over the edge, his cloaking field flickering as he descended into the darkness below. He landed hard but rolled to absorb the impact, his body aching from the fall. For a moment, there was silence. Had he lost him? Then, to Rin's horror, he heard a thud behind him. Draven had jumped too. Rin scrambled to his feet, panting as he turned to face his pursuer. Draven was standing there, completely calm, his chest barely heaving. There wasn't a scratch on him from the fall, and his eyes were locked on Rin with a cold, predatory intensity. "You've got some explaining to do," Draven said, his voice low and threatening. Rin had never felt fear like this before. Draven wasn't just a soldier. He was something else, something far more dangerous than the galaxy had anticipated. Rin was trapped. He had never felt so cornered, so vulnerable. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but he knew it was pointless. Draven was faster, stronger. His mind operated at a speed Rin couldn't match. He had to think quickly, come up with a plan, but Draven's presence made his thoughts sluggish, clouded by fear. "What are you?" Rin rasped, his voice barely more than a whisper. The question felt absurd as it left his lips. He already knew the answer, but hearing it from Draven might help him make sense of this nightmare. Draven didn't respond immediately. Instead, he took a few steps closer, his movements slow and deliberate, as if he were sizing up a prey caught in a trap. His eyes flickered with something Rin couldn't identify, a strange mix of curiosity and resolve. "You're not the first to ask that," Draven finally said, his tone calm yet foreboding. "But I'm still figuring it out myself." Rin backed up until his heels touched the edge of the ravine, his mind racing. This wasn't just about adrenaline anymore. There was something far deeper at play here, something that the Union had failed to account for. The humans weren't merely using their natural biology to enhance their combat abilities. They had unlocked a potential that transcended anything known in the galaxy. I don't know what the Union thinks they're getting into, Draven continued, his voice steady, but you should have stayed in the shadows. Rin's heart pounded as he activated his emergency beacon, sending a silent distress signal to the nearest Union operative ship. He needed extraction now. If he could just stall for time, he might have a chance of escaping this nightmare. Whatever you're doing, it won't save you, Draven said, his voice suddenly colder. He had noticed the flicker of Rin's wrist where the beacon had been activated. You think calling for backup will work? By the time your friends get here, I'll have the answers I need. Rin's mind raced, desperately trying to formulate a response. If the Union knew what Draven was, they could be prepared for this threat. He just had to survive long enough to transmit the data. But the question remained, what was Draven? Was this still just adrenaline, or was there something more? You're just a soldier, Rin stammered, still backing away, inching along the ravine's edge. Humans, you're not supposed to be this powerful. The data, it doesn't make sense. Draven's lips curled into a faint, humorless smile. You think this is about data? Numbers? The galaxy's been looking at us like some kind of statistical anomaly for too long. You and your Union, your calculations, your assumptions, they've blinded you. Rin's hand shook. He tried to focus on his escape, to find some way out. But his mind kept flashing back to the reports that detailed humanity's improbable survival through countless catastrophes, their resilience in battles where victory seemed impossible. Each time, the Union had dismissed it as luck, or ingenuity, or the result of advanced tactics. But this was different. Draven took another step forward, his presence oppressive. What you don't understand is that humans have been evolving on a death world for millennia. You might think your species are stronger, smarter, faster, but you've never had to face extinction every single day. We have. Rin's breath caught in his throat. That word, death world. It was something every species in the Union had heard before, but most dismissed it as legend. A death world was a place so hostile, so dangerous, that no sentient life could possibly thrive there. And yet, Earth was one of them. A planet of constant tectonic shifts, extreme climates, deadly predators, and a host of other hazards. You've always underestimated us, Draven continued, his voice now filled with a quiet intensity. We're not just the apex predators of our world, we've had to become something more. That's why your data doesn't make sense. You can't quantify what it means to be human. Rin's heart was racing faster now, his mind scrambling for a way out. His people had vastly underestimated the humans. The Union had focused so much on technology and strategy, they had failed to see the truth. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't something that could be measured. It was their adaptability, their tenacity, and their willingness to fight for survival at any cost. The emergency beacon pulsed in his wrist. The extraction ship was closing in, just a little longer. You think you can stop us? Rin blurted out, desperation creeping into his voice. The Union will know about this. They'll bring everything they have to destroy you. Draven's expression didn't change. He simply raised an eyebrow. Let them come. Suddenly, a low hum filled the air, and a beam of light cut through the night sky. Rin's extraction ship was here. He allowed himself a brief moment of relief. The ship's stealth field disengaged as it descended, its cloaked form now visible as it hovered just above the ground. Without wasting a second, Rin activated his jump pack and launched himself toward the ship, his heart pounding with adrenaline of his own. He was going to make it. He would survive. The Union would learn everything, and they would destroy this human threat before it could spread. But as Rin soared through the air, something cold gripped his chest, a sense of impending doom. He glanced back, just for a moment, and his blood ran cold. Draven had followed him. No jump pack, no assistive tech, just pure, unfiltered human strength. He had launched himself into the air, defying gravity with nothing but sheer willpower and adrenaline. And he was gaining on Rin. Panic flooded Rin's mind as he pushed his jump pack to its limit, but it was too late. Draven reached him in midair, grabbing Rin's ankle with an iron grip. The force of the grab sent them both tumbling through the air, crashing into the side of the extraction ship with a deafening thud. Rin struggled, thrashing against Draven's grip, but the human's strength was overwhelming. He could feel the pressure building in his chest, his lungs struggling to breathe under Draven's crushing hold. "You're not going anywhere," Draven hissed, his voice low and dangerous. Rin's vision blurred as he struggled for air. His last hope was slipping away, and the realization hit him like a cold wave. This wasn't just about him anymore. The Union had underestimated the humans, and they were going to pay the price for it. But in his final moments of consciousness, just before everything went dark, Rin understood one thing with terrifying clarity. The galaxy wasn't ready for humanity. The sharp metallic tang of the ship's interior hit Rin as his vision slowly returned, blurry at first, but sharpening to reveal the ceiling lights flickering above him. Pain shot through his body, reminding him that his escape had been anything but graceful. He was inside the extraction ship, and from the low hum of the engines, it was already moving, taking him away from the nightmare that was Draven. He's still out there," Rin rasped, feeling the weight of the realization pressing on him. He tried to sit up, his limbs protesting with every movement. "Stay down." A gruff voice spoke from his left. Rin turned his head to see Captain Vornak, his Union contact, leaning over the control console, his rough features illuminated by the dim glow of the ship's displays. The captain's face was set in a scowl, his eyes narrowing at Rin. "We got you out, but what the hell happened out there?" Rin swallowed hard, his throat dry. "You have no idea what you're dealing with," he wheezed, his voice barely a whisper. "The humans, they're more than we thought. That soldier, Draven, he's not just running on adrenaline. There's something else." Captain Vornak's scowl deepened. "You're telling me we almost lost you because of some drugged-up human?" "It's not a drug," Rin insisted, shaking his head. "It's part of them. Adrenaline, something in their biology, gives them an edge. The moment they hit it, it's like they become something else. Faster, stronger, more unpredictable." Vornak glanced at the control panel, clearly processing the information. His thick, leathery fingers hovered over the communication controls for a moment before he turned back to Rin. "This could change things," he said quietly, almost to himself. "The Union's been preparing for a standard conflict, but if what you're saying is true, we're not ready for a species that can weaponize its own biology." Rin winced as he shifted in his seat. "We need to pull back. We can't face them head-on, not like this. They're a Deathworld species, Captain. We underestimated them." The term Deathworld still echoed in Rin's mind. Earth, the humans' home, was a place unlike any other, a planet that produced not just survivors, but apex predators. The Union had dismissed the notion, but now it was clear. Humans weren't just another technologically advanced species, they were a force of nature. Captain Vornak frowned. "Our orders are clear. We were to scout their capabilities and report back. But if the situation has escalated—" "It has," Rin interrupted, his voice firmer now. "If Draven is any indication of what humans can become under stress, we need to warn the Union immediately. A single soldier nearly took me down, and I was armed with the best tech we have." Vornak raised an eyebrow. "You think the Union will believe that? You barely survived the encounter. They'll write it off as a close call." Rin clenched his fists. "Then we make them believe it. We need to get the data, the proof, anything that shows the danger these humans pose." The captain's gaze flicked back to the console, his expression hardening. "I'll inform command, but it's not going to be easy. The Union's pride won't let them back down without a fight. They've always seen themselves as the pinnacle of galactic evolution." Rin nodded slowly. He knew Vornak was right. The Union had never been one to admit weakness, especially when it came to their standing among the galaxy's races. Pulling back from a confrontation with a species they considered inferior would be seen as a sign of failure. But if they didn't, they would be walking into a war they couldn't win. As the extraction ship sped away from the planet's surface, Rin's thoughts drifted back to Draven. That look in his eyes, the way he moved, it was unnatural, primal. He hadn't just been fighting to win, he had been hunting. And if that was just one human soldier, what would an entire army of them look like, operating at full capacity, adrenaline surging through their veins? The thought sent a shiver down his spine. Suddenly, an alert blared through the ship, cutting through the tense silence. Vornak's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing at the screen. "Incoming transmission," he muttered. "It's from the human fleet." Rin's stomach dropped. The humans were tracking them. "They must have detected our jump," Vornak growled, his fingers dancing across the control panel as he brought up the communication feed. "Let's see what they want." The display flickered to life, and a face appeared on the screen. It was a human officer, his dark eyes scanning the camera with an intensity that made Rin's skin crawl. His expression was calm, almost eerily so. "This is Commander Hale of the Terran Defense Force," the man began, his voice deep and authoritative. "We're aware of your ship's presence in restricted airspace. You've violated our territorial boundaries, and under Galactic Code, we have the right to detain and interrogate any vessel within these limits." Vornak scowled. "We were on a reconnaissance mission, Commander. Nothing more. We'll be leaving your territory immediately." The human's expression didn't change. "That's not your decision to make, Captain. You're in possession of sensitive information regarding Terran military personnel, and that makes you a security threat. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded." Rin's heart pounded in his chest. "We can't let them capture us," he whispered to Vornak. "If they get their hands on our data, they'll know we've been spying on them." Vornak's jaw tightened. "I know." He turned to the comms and spoke firmly. "We're leaving. Any attempt to engage will be seen as an act of war against the Union." For a moment, there was silence. The human commander didn't react, his expression unreadable. But then, his voice came through again, calm and measured. "You don't understand," Commander Hale said, his tone unnervingly steady. "This isn't about politics or territory anymore. Your ship has seen something you weren't supposed to see. You've glimpsed the edge of what we are, what we're capable of. We can't let that knowledge leave." Rin felt a cold sweat break out across his brow. The humans were serious. They were going to eliminate any threat that could expose their advantage, whatever it took. Vornak's fingers hovered over the control panel, but his hesitation was clear. The Union had protocols for this kind of situation: engage, retreat, or fight to the death. But against an enemy like this, there were no guarantees. Suddenly, the ship's sensors lit up with a proximity alert. Rin's eyes widened as he saw it, a Terran strike vessel, cloaked until now, dropping out of stealth mode directly in their path. "They're not giving us a choice," Vornak muttered under his breath. "Brace yourself." The ship lurched as Vornak powered up the engines to full throttle, preparing for evasive maneuvers. But even as the vessel surged forward, the Terran ship closed the distance with frightening speed. "They're too fast," Rin gasped, gripping his seat. "We won't make it." Vornak's eyes narrowed, his hands gripping the controls tightly. "Then we're gonna have to fight our way out." The extraction ship roared to life as it twisted through the stars, weaving between asteroid fields and solar flares. But the Terran strike vessel was relentless, matching their every move with calculated precision. Rin could feel his pulse quicken, the dread settling deep in his gut. The humans had unlocked something within themselves, something that made them more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. And now they were hunting him. The extraction ship rattled violently as the Terran strike vessel closed in, its sleek, predatory form gliding effortlessly through the debris-strewn expanse of space. Rin's mind raced. He was no soldier, but even he could see the writing on the wall. There was no way to outrun the humans. They had anticipated every move, their precision terrifying. "Vornak!" Rin shouted, his voice barely audible over the deafening hum of the ship's engines straining at maximum capacity. "We need a plan, if they board us." "I know," Vornak snapped, his eyes glued to the controls, sweat trickling down his rugged face. The captain's fingers danced across the dashboard, recalibrating the ship's shields and preparing for evasive maneuvers. But it was clear that even he knew the odds were slim. Hold on to something. Without warning, Vornak pulled the ship into a hard roll, narrowly dodging a barrage of laser fire from the Terran vessel. The bolts of energy sliced through the space where they had been mere moments before, the searing heat visible even through the vacuum of space. That was too close, Rin muttered under his breath, his heart pounding against his ribcage. Every instinct screamed at him to flee, to run as far as he could from the deadly force chasing them. But there was nowhere left to run, nowhere to hide. Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently, a low groan emanating from its core. Rin's eyes widened as the lights flickered, and the hum of the engine sputtered, faltering. No, 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 Vornak growled, slamming his fist against the control panel. They've hit our thrusters. A glance at the status display confirmed the worst. Their propulsion system had taken a direct hit. The ship was slowing, the Terran vessel looming larger on the sensors with each passing second. They're disabling us, Rin whispered, dread filling his voice. They're going to board. Vornak cursed under his breath. Not if I can help it. The captain activated the ship's automated defense system, sending a volley of retaliatory fire toward the Terran ship. But Rin knew it was futile. The strike vessel was heavily armored, built for direct confrontation. Their extraction ship was built for speed and stealth, not firepower. The laser cannons barely scorched the surface of the Terran hull. This is Commander Hale of the Terran Defense Force. The human's voice crackled through the comms again, calm and unyielding. Your vessel has sustained critical damage. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. Any further resistance will result in your immediate destruction. Rin's blood ran cold. There was something about the way the human spoke detached, emotionless. This wasn't just a military operation, it was a calculated hunt. The humans knew exactly what they were doing, and they wouldn't stop until they had what they wanted. Vornak gritted his teeth, his eyes narrowing. We still have a few tricks up our sleeve, he muttered, flipping a series of switches on the control panel. Rin watched as the ship's stealth system activated, cloaking their vessel in an attempt to buy them some time. The ship's exterior shimmered for a moment before disappearing from sight, blending into the vast expanse of space. For a moment, there was silence. Do you think it'll work? Rin asked, his voice barely a whisper. Vornak didn't respond, his attention focused entirely on the sensors. They waited, the tension thick in the air, every second stretching out like an eternity. The extraction ship drifted in the void, hidden from sight, its systems powered down to avoid detection. But Rin knew better. The humans had already proven themselves to be far more resourceful than they had anticipated. Suddenly, the ship's proximity alarms blared to life, jolting both Rin and Vornak from their momentary reprieve. The Terran strike vessel had found them. They're tracking us through our cloak, Vornak cursed, slamming his fist on the console. Damn it! How is that possible? Rin asked, his voice trembling. They shouldn't be able to. They've adapted, Vornak cut him off, his voice low and grim. Just like you said, they're using the same instincts, the same adrenaline that's built into them. They can track us, even when we're invisible. A cold chill ran down Rin's spine. The humans weren't just technologically superior, they were evolving right before their eyes, adapting to every obstacle thrown at them. It was as if they were built for survival, wired to overcome anything in their path. Then what do we do? Rin asked, desperation creeping into his voice. Vornak's expression hardened. We fight? Before Rin could protest, the ship rocked violently as the Terran vessel fired a concentrated pulse. The stealth systems flickered and failed, leaving them exposed once again. Sparks flew from the console as the extraction ship's shields buckled under the assault. They're going to breach us, Vornak muttered, his voice filled with grim determination. Get ready. Rin's hand shook as he reached for the sidearms strapped to his belt. He wasn't a soldier, he wasn't built for this. But as the reality of the situation sank in, He knew there was no other option. They had to defend the ship, no matter the cost. The ship shuddered as the Terran vessel latched onto them, its boarding clamps securing them in place. The sound of metal grinding against metal echoed through the hull as the humans prepared to board. Rin's heart pounded in his chest as he took cover behind one of the ship's bulkheads, his weapon clutched tightly in his hands. Vornak stood at the front, his blaster raised and ready, his eyes fixed on the entrance hatch. The air was thick with tension, every second dragging on as they waited for the inevitable. And then, with a deafening roar, the hatch blew open. Smoke billowed into the room as the humans breached the ship, their silhouettes barely visible through the haze. But even in the chaos, Rin could see them, armored figures moving with the precision of a well-oiled machine, their eyes glowing with an eerie focus. "Hold your ground," Vornak shouted, opening fire as the first human soldier stepped through the breach. Rin squeezed the trigger of his weapon, the recoil jarring his arm as he fired blindly into the smoke. The sound of blaster fire filled the air, deafening in the confined space. But as the smoke began to clear, Rin saw them unfazed, undeterred, moving forward with relentless determination. One of the human soldiers lunged toward Vornak, his movements almost too fast to track. Vornak fired, but the human dodged with unnatural speed, closing the distance in the blink of an eye. With a swift, brutal motion, the human knocked Vornak's blaster aside and slammed him into the wall, the impact reverberating through the ship. Rin's eyes widened in horror as the human turned toward him, his gaze cold and unyielding. He raised his weapon, but his hands were shaking so badly that he could barely aim. The human soldier took a step forward, and in that moment, Rin knew there was no escape. But just as the human raised his weapon to strike, a sudden explosion rocked the ship, sending both Rin and the human soldier tumbling to the ground. "What the?" Rin gasped, scrambling to his feet. Smoke and debris filled the air, and through the chaos, he could hear the distant sound of alarms blaring. The human soldier staggered to his feet, disoriented by the explosion. But before he could regain his footing, Vornak was on him, his fist connecting with the human's helmet with a sickening crunch. The soldier crumpled to the ground, unconscious. Vornak turned to Rin, his face grim. "We're not done yet." The ship's alarms wailed as smoke filled the air, but there was no time to assess the damage. Rin's pulse thundered in his ears, his hands shaking from the adrenaline coursing through his veins. They had taken down one human soldier, but more were coming, and there was no guarantee they would be able to survive another encounter. "Come on, we need to move," Vornak growled, grabbing Rin by the arm and dragging him toward the nearest corridor. "We can't stay here." "But the ship," Rin stammered, his voice trembling with fear and uncertainty. "The ship's a lost cause," Vornak snapped. "They'll either capture it or blow it to bits. Right now, we need to get to the escape pods before they take us down with it." Rin's legs felt like jelly as he stumbled after Vornak, the blaring alarms disorienting him further. The lights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows across the narrow corridor as they raced toward the back of the ship. Behind them, the sounds of more human soldiers breaching the hull echoed like the footsteps of death itself. "How are they doing this?" Rin panted, struggling to keep pace. "How are they this strong?" Vornak didn't answer immediately. Instead, he led them through a side hatch, sealing it behind them. The small room they entered was dimly lit, with various crates and equipment scattered about. In the center, 2 escape pods were mounted, their entry hatches waiting for the inevitable. As Vornak worked quickly to unlock the first pod, Rin leaned against the wall, trying to catch his breath. His mind reeled with everything that had happened. The humans had been faster, stronger, more lethal than he had ever imagined possible. They hadn't just been soldiers, they had been monsters. "I'll tell you how they're doing it," Vornak finally said, his voice low and strained. "It's the serum." Rin blinked, confused. "The serum?" Vornak glanced up from the escape pod's control panel, his eyes dark with grim knowledge. "Adrenaline. The humans have it naturally, but they found a way to control it. They can release it at will, turning themselves into something else. Rin's mind struggled to comprehend what Vornak was saying. You mean, that rush of strength, the speed, that's all adrenaline? Vornak nodded. It's the reason they're so deadly. They've weaponized their own biology. While we rely on external tech to enhance our abilities, the humans have their own built-in advantage. When they're in that state, they feel no pain, they think faster, move quicker. It's why they've become so unpredictable, so dangerous. Rin's stomach churned. So, they're not just soldiers. There's something more. Exactly, Vornak said, his voice grim. And now that they've learned how to harness it, they're practically unstoppable. That's what the higher-ups wanted from this mission, to understand how it works. They wanted to extract the serum, reverse engineer it, and create our own version of the human superpower. But now, it looks like we'll be lucky to get out of here alive. Rin's throat tightened as the weight of the situation sank in. He had thought this mission was about a simple extraction, about gathering intel on human activity in the region. He hadn't realized they were trying to steal humanity's most dangerous secret. Vornak's hands moved rapidly over the pod's controls, but before he could finish, a sharp sound echoed from behind them, metal scraping against metal, the unmistakable sound of approaching footsteps. They're here, Rin whispered, dread filling his chest. Vornak cursed under his breath and yanked Rin toward the second pod. Get in, now. Rin hesitated, his eyes darting toward the door. The footsteps were getting closer. Any second now, the humans would breach their last refuge. Go, Vornak shouted, shoving him into the pod. Rin stumbled inside, his heart pounding as he strapped himself into the seat. Vornak followed suit, quickly sealing the hatch behind them. As the pod systems powered up, the faint hum of the engine provided little comfort. The humans were only moments away from breaking through. Is it going to work? Rin asked, his voice shaking. It has to, Vornak muttered, his fingers flying over the controls. We're out of options. The pod shook as it detached from the main ship, the sensation of weightlessness briefly overwhelming Rin. Outside the tiny viewport, the extraction ship loomed like a dying beast, its hull torn and burning from the relentless assault. Behind it, the Terran strike vessel circled like a predator, ready to deliver the final blow. But they were free for now. The pod accelerated, rocketing away from the battle in a desperate bid for escape. Rin's heart raced as he watched the stars blur past, the safety of open space tantalizingly close. But even as they sped away, he couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't truly free. They'll come after us, Rin said, his voice hollow. They won't let us get away. Vornak's expression was grim. I know. For a few tense moments, silence filled the pod as they hurtled through space. Rin's mind was a whirl of fear, anger, and confusion. How had everything gone so wrong? How had the humans become so powerful? But before he could dwell further on those thoughts, the pod's proximity alarm blared to life, jolting him from his reverie. They're following us, Vornak muttered, his face pale. They're not going to let us go. Rin's stomach lurched. What do we do? Vornak gripped the controls tightly, his knuckles white. We keep running. As long as the pod systems hold out, we can... His words were cut off by a sudden jolt, the pod lurching violently to one side. Rin's heart slammed against his ribs as he was thrown against the harness, pain shooting through his chest. The pod was shaking, its frame groaning under the pressure. They've locked onto us, Vornak shouted, his voice barely audible over the blaring alarms. The Terran strike vessel had fired a tether, latching onto the escape pod and reeling it back toward the ship. Rin's breath caught in his throat as he realized the horrifying truth: they weren't going to escape. The humans had them in their grip, and there was nothing they could do to break free. Vornak, Rin cried, panic rising in his chest. We have to do something. But Vornak's face was ashen, his eyes wide with disbelief. He looked down at the controls, his hands trembling. There's no way out, he whispered. We're finished. The pod continued to shake violently as it was dragged closer to the Terran vessel. Rin's mind raced, his thoughts a blur of fear and despair. This couldn't be happening. After everything they had been through, after all the sacrifices they had made, it couldn't end like this. But as the Terran ship loomed larger in the viewport, reality set in. They were caught, and there was no escape. Suddenly, the pod jerked again, but this time it wasn't from the tether. A massive explosion erupted from the side of the Terran strike vessel, sending debris and fire cascading into the void. Rin's eyes widened in shock as a second ship appeared on the horizon, its sleek form bristling with weapons. "The Federation?" Vornak muttered, his voice filled with disbelief. The newly arrived ship opened fire on the Terran vessel, its powerful cannons tearing through the strike craft's defenses. Rin watched in awe as the humans were forced to retreat, their once dominating presence suddenly overwhelmed by the unexpected reinforcements. As the Terran ship disengaged, releasing its hold on the pod, Rin felt a surge of relief wash over him. They had been saved, but by whom? The Federation ship hovered like a silent sentinel as it pushed the Terran strike vessel into retreat. Its sleek hull, bristling with advanced weaponry and shimmering with energy shields, reflected the nearby stars, making it appear otherworldly. For a moment, Rin couldn't believe they had been rescued. A wave of relief coursed through him, but it was tempered by the ever-present fear of what humanity had become. Vornak was the first to speak. "We're not out of this yet. We don't know if that ship's on our side." Rin swallowed hard and glanced out of the viewport. The Federation ship had stopped firing, its guns lowering as if assessing the situation. Slowly, it drifted closer to their escape pod. "They saved us from the humans, didn't they?" Rin said, trying to convince himself more than Vornak. Why would they do that unless they intended to help? Vornak was silent, his hands gripping the controls. He hadn't yet attempted to power the pod's engines back up. He was waiting, watching. A crackle came over the comm system, startling both of them. A voice followed, deep and authoritative. "Unknown escape pod, this is Commander Thale of the Federation cruiser Aegis. You have entered a restricted combat zone. Identify yourselves immediately." Vornak looked at Rin, his expression torn between hope and caution. "We don't have much choice," he muttered, before pressing the comm button. "This is Lieutenant Vornak, from the scout vessel Revenant. We were conducting a recon mission when we were ambushed by Terran forces." There was a pause on the other end, long enough to make Rin's heart race again. The tension in the air was palpable. After a few moments, the voice returned. "Lieutenant Vornak, prepare to be tractored aboard. We will take you in for debriefing." The pod jolted slightly as a tractor beam locked onto them. Vornak let out a long, exhausted breath, slumping back into his seat. "We made it," he said, his voice heavy with relief. "For now." The pod was gently pulled toward the Federation cruiser's docking bay. As they approached, Rin's mind raced with conflicting thoughts. He was grateful for the rescue, but the memory of the human soldiers, their unstoppable strength, lingered in his mind. The Federation might have saved them, but how long before humanity's power overwhelmed even them? With a soft thud, the pod settled in the cruiser's bay. The hatch unlocked with a hiss, and the atmosphere in the bay equalized, making it safe to step outside. As they exited the pod, a team of Federation soldiers, clad in pristine armor and armed with plasma rifles, awaited them. Their leader, a tall, broad-shouldered man with dark, steely eyes, approached. He was Commander Thale, and his presence radiated authority. "Lieutenant Vornak, welcome aboard," Thale said, his tone curt but professional. "You'll be escorted to the briefing room. We need to understand exactly what happened out there." Vornak nodded and motioned for Rin to follow. As they were led through the ship's corridors, the hum of the powerful engines and the sterile gleam of the Federation's advanced technology surrounded them. This ship was a far cry from the Revenant. It was a fortress in space, built for war, but oozing precision and control. Rin kept his eyes forward, but his mind wandered. Would the Federation understand the threat humanity posed? Could they grasp the danger of a species that had turned its own biology into a weapon? Or were they just another military force trying to control what they didn't fully comprehend? They entered the briefing room, a spacious area dominated by a central holotable displaying the battle zone they had just escaped. Commander Thale stood at the head of the table, flanked by his officers. "Let's get to it," Thale began, his tone sharp. "What did you encounter?" Vornak stepped forward, his voice steady. "The Terrans have weaponized their natural adrenaline. They've developed a method to control it, amplify it. They're soldiers. They're beyond anything we've seen. Faster, stronger, nearly unstoppable in combat." Thale raised an eyebrow. "Adrenaline? You're saying the humans have found a way to use their own stress hormone as a combat enhancer?" Vornak nodded. "It's more than just enhancement. It's like a transformation. When the adrenaline kicks in, they become something else. We barely survived one of their boarding parties." Thale's officers exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of concern and skepticism. One of them, a grizzled-looking lieutenant with a scar running down the side of his face, spoke up. "Are you sure it wasn't just combat drugs? There are plenty of black market variants that can do similar things." Vornak shook his head. "No, this wasn't some artificial stimulant. This was raw, natural power. They've harnessed something that already existed within them, and it's terrifying." Thale frowned, tapping his fingers on the table. "If what you're saying is true, this changes everything. We've always known the humans were resilient, but this makes them a far greater threat." Rin, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up, his voice quiet but firm. "It's not just about their strength. It's their unpredictability. They don't fight like us. They adapt. They turn their own weaknesses into strengths." Thale's gaze shifted to Rin, studying him for a moment. "And you believe this makes them uncontrollable?" Rin hesitated, searching for the right words. "They're not bound by the same rules as the rest of us. Their biology is chaotic, driven by emotions and instincts that we can't predict. If they've learned to control that, to weaponize it, then yes, they're uncontrollable." The room fell silent as Thale considered their words. Finally, he spoke, his voice low. "We've known for a long time that humanity was dangerous. That's why they've been kept under observation. But this adrenaline serum changes things. We'll need to report this to High Command immediately." Vornak and Rin exchanged glances, both understanding the gravity of the situation. Humanity's secret was out, and now the entire galaxy would know just how powerful they had become. As the briefing concluded, and they were escorted back to their quarters, Rin couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to spiral out of control. The Federation might have saved them today, but the war against humanity was far from over. And with their newfound superpower, the humans were just getting started. Days aboard the Aegis passed in tense silence. The Federation cruiser had become a fortress of paranoia, with every officer and crew member acutely aware of the danger humanity now posed. The usual hum of efficiency in the ship's corridors was replaced by whispered conversations, anxious glances, and the pervasive feeling that something was coming, something far worse than they had imagined. Rin and Vornak spent their time confined to quarters when they weren't being debriefed. The constant questioning had become exhausting, with Federation intelligence eager to dissect every detail of their encounter with the human strike team. But the real weight on Rin's shoulders wasn't the debriefings, it was the knowledge that humanity's secret was out. Whatever the Federation planned next, it would inevitably escalate the conflict. The call came without warning. A sharp tone pierced the quiet of their quarters, followed by Commander Thale's voice over the comms. "Lieutenant Vornak, Rin, report to the tactical briefing room immediately." Rin shot Vornak a worried glance as they stood. The urgency in Thale's voice wasn't typical. Something had changed. They hurried through the cruiser's labyrinthine halls, their boots clanging against the metal floor. When they arrived at the briefing room, they found Thale standing over the holotable, his arms crossed, his expression grim. Several high-ranking officers flanked him, all wearing the same severe looks. At the center of the holo display was a rotating image of a planet, Earth. "You're here," Thales said, his voice flat. "Good. We've just received a communique from High Command. The Federation is moving forward with an assault on Earth." Rin's heart skipped a beat. An assault? On Earth itself? Vornak's voice was tight with shock. "But that's suicide. You've seen what they can do, what they've become. Their adrenaline serum makes them." "Unstoppable?" Thale interrupted, his voice dripping with frustration. "Perhaps. But High Command doesn't see it that way. They believe that by striking swiftly, we can overwhelm their defenses before they have a chance to deploy those enhanced soldiers in full force." Rin shook his head in disbelief. "That's madness. You're talking about a full-scale invasion of the most dangerous species in the galaxy. If even a fraction of their population is capable of what we saw, you won't just be fighting an army, you'll be fighting monsters." Thale's gaze hardened. "Monsters or not, the Federation has made its decision. The humans are to be contained, and that means taking the fight to their homeworld. We've been assigned to the vanguard." The silence that followed was suffocating. Rin's mind raced, trying to process the insanity of what he was hearing. A direct assault on Earth against a species that had turned their own biology into a weapon. The Federation was making a gamble, and the cost could be catastrophic. Vornak took a step forward, his voice low but urgent. "Commander, with all due respect, this is a mistake. We've barely scratched the surface of what the humans are capable of. If you attack them on their home turf, where they have access to their full resources, their adrenaline enhancements, and their unpredictable nature, you're underestimating them." Thale's jaw clenched. "I understand the risks, Lieutenant. But High Command believes this is the best course of action. We've already seen the humans' expansion into contested systems. They're not content to remain isolated anymore. If we don't act now, we may lose our window of opportunity." Rin opened his mouth to argue further, but Thale cut him off with a raised hand. "Enough. I didn't bring you here to debate Federation policy. I brought you here because you're the only ones with first-hand experience facing these enhanced humans. We need everything you know about their tactics, their capabilities, and how they use the adrenaline serum. Every detail could mean the difference between victory and annihilation." Vornak's shoulders slumped slightly, the weight of inevitability pressing down on him. "Very well, Commander. We'll cooperate. But mark my words, what you're planning is more than just a military operation. It's an invitation to chaos." Thale nodded curtly. Understood. Dismissed. As they left the briefing room, Rin's thoughts churned with anxiety. The Federation was barreling headlong into a conflict they didn't fully understand. And if humanity's serum-enhanced soldiers were as unstoppable as they seemed, the Federation wouldn't just be facing defeat, they'd be facing extinction. The days leading up to the invasion passed in a blur. Rin and Vornak were debriefed over and over, every possible strategy and piece of intel extracted from them. But no amount of preparation could quell the dread that had settled in Rin's chest. The Federation was preparing to launch an assault on the heart of humanity's power, and deep down, Rin knew they were walking into a slaughter. The fleet gathered at the edge of Terran space, hundreds of ships poised to strike at the human homeworld. The Aegis was part of the vanguard, tasked with leading the initial wave. As they neared Earth, the sight of the planet filled the viewscreen. Blue, green, and swirling with clouds, Earth seemed so serene from orbit. But Rin knew better. Beneath that peaceful surface lay a species that had harnessed something primal, something terrifying. The comms crackled to life. "All ships, this is High Command. Begin assault. Target all major Terran military installations. Full planetary bombardment authorized." The order hung in the air like a death sentence. Vornak looked at Rin, his face pale. "This is it." Before Rin could respond, the ship shuddered violently. The viewscreen flickered, showing streaks of fire erupting from the planet's surface. Earth's defenses had activated massive anti-orbital cannons, unleashing devastating energy beams into the sky. The first wave of Federation ships was met with a storm of fire. Explosions dotted the blackness of space as vessels were torn apart. The Aegis weaved through the chaos, its shield straining under the assault. But then, something else appeared on the viewscreen. Rin's blood ran cold as he saw them human ships, sleek and bristling with weapons. But they weren't just ships. Boarding pods, hundreds of them, launched from Earth's surface, hurtling toward the Federation fleet. "They're boarding us," one of the officers shouted, panic creeping into his voice. Rin watched in horror as the pods made contact with the Aegis, slamming into the hull. The thuds echoed through the ship like the tolling of a bell, and then silence. "They're coming," Vornak whispered. The lights in the ship flickered as the first signs of the human boarding parties reached them. The adrenaline-enhanced soldiers were here, and this time there would be no escape. The lights dimmed again, then flickered back on. Rin heard the telltale sounds of blaster fire in the distance, muffled but drawing closer. Humanity's adrenaline-enhanced warriors had breached the Aegis, and they weren't just attacking, they were hunting. "Arm yourselves," Vornak barked, reaching for his sidearm. The rest of the bridge crew followed suit, tension gripping them like a vice. "Lock down all access points," Commander Thale ordered. "We can't let them reach the bridge. If they take this ship, they'll have a clear line of command to the rest of the fleet." The ship shuddered again, another tremor rolling through as more of the human boarding pods latched onto the hull. The clanging and scraping sounds were unmistakable, breach after breach. Rin tightened his grip on his weapon. His hands trembled as his mind flashed back to the first encounter with the adrenaline-enhanced humans. The way their eyes had burned with a raw, primal energy. The way they had moved faster, stronger, utterly relentless. Facing them now, in the confines of the ship, felt like a death sentence. "They'll be through soon," Vornak muttered, his eyes darting toward the sealed blast door that was all that separated them from the approaching chaos. As if in answer, the door shuddered, then buckled under an enormous impact. A deep, reverberating thud echoed through the bridge, followed by another. The metal groaned as it warped under the pressure. "Ready weapons," Thale shouted. His voice was steady, but Rin could see the fear in his eyes. They all knew what was coming. The door gave one final groan before it burst inward, torn from its hinges. Through the smoke and debris, Rin saw them human soldiers, clad in sleek black armor, faces obscured by their helmets. But it wasn't the armor or the weapons they carried that sent a chill down Rin's spine. It was the way they moved. Fluid, precise, and terrifyingly fast. The first human burst into the room with a speed that made Rin's blaster shot go wide. Before he could fire again, the human had crossed the distance, ducked low, and slammed into him. The force knocked the wind from Rin's lungs as he was sent sprawling across the deck. Blaster fire erupted all around him as the rest of the bridge crew engaged the intruders. Vornak let out a roar, firing round after round into the advancing humans. One of the soldiers took a direct hit, stumbling back, but only for a moment. Then, fueled by the adrenaline surge, the human was back on his feet, charging forward with unnatural speed. Rin scrambled to his feet, his heart racing. He fired his blaster again, this time hitting one of the human soldiers in the chest. The impact barely slowed him down. The human let out a guttural growl, his eyes locking onto Rin with a ferocity that sent a spike of fear straight through him. Then it hit Rin. This wasn't just adrenaline, it was something more, something deeper. The humans were pushing their bodies far beyond normal limits, beyond what should have been possible. As the chaos unfolded, Rin's mind raced. There had to be something, some weakness, some way to stop them. But every shot, every blow seemed to only fuel their rage, their determination. They were unstoppable. Vornak fought fiercely, taking down 2 of the human soldiers, but not without suffering a brutal blow to his shoulder. He grunted in pain, but continued fighting, his survival instincts kicking in. The humans fought without mercy, and the bridge crew was quickly overwhelmed. Only a few officers remained standing, including Rin and Vornak, as they took cover behind consoles and bulkheads. Then, through the haze of battle, Rin noticed something. One of the humans, an officer, judging by his insignia, paused, placing a hand on his helmet, as if receiving orders. The human soldiers stopped advancing, regrouping with a discipline that Rin hadn't expected. "Fall back," the officer said in a low voice, audible through his helmet's comm system. Rin blinked. What? Why were they retreating? Without a word, the human soldiers moved back through the broken blast door, leaving the bridge in eerie silence. The sound of their footsteps faded into the distance, and then they were gone. "What just happened?" Vornak breathed, clutching his injured arm. He glanced at Rin, confusion and relief written across his face. Thales stood, wiping blood from his brow. "They could have finished us," he said, his voice trembling with disbelief. "But they didn't. Why?" Rin was about to respond when the ship's emergency comm system crackled to life. A voice, human, clear and authoritative, filled the bridge. It wasn't a Federation officer. It was one of them. "This is Captain Elias of the Terran Defense Fleet. Aegis, we have control of your forward sections. You are ordered to stand down. Resistance will be met with lethal force." Silence. No one moved. Rin's mind spun, trying to make sense of the situation. The humans had the upper hand. They had boarded the ship, disabled key systems, and now had control of critical areas. But something didn't add up. If they had control, why weren't they finishing the job? Thales' face was pale, his hands clenched into fists. He reached for the comm panel, activating the ship-wide channel. "Captain Elias, this is Commander Thale of the Aegis. We will not surrender." There was a long pause, then Captain Elias's voice crackled back. "I wasn't offering surrender, Commander. I was offering mercy." "Mercy?" Rin exchanged a confused glance with Vornak. What game were the humans playing? "You've seen what we can do," Elias continued, his tone calm, almost conversational. "You've seen the power of adrenaline. We could destroy you, wipe your fleet from the stars. But we don't want that. This isn't a war of annihilation. We're offering you a chance to leave, to retreat from Terran space and end this conflict before it spirals out of control." Thales' jaw clenched. "And if we refuse?" "Then we'll show you what a true adrenaline surge looks like," Elias said, his voice cold and measured. "The serum we've used so far is only a fraction of its potential. If we unleash its full power, well, I don't think I need to explain what happens next." Rin felt a chill crawl down his spine. He believed him. The humans had already demonstrated their terrifying capabilities. If they were holding back, if there was more to their serum than what they'd already seen. Vornak spoke up, his voice barely above a whisper. "Commander, we can't win this. Not like this." Thales' face twisted in frustration, but the truth was undeniable. The Federation had miscalculated. Humanity had evolved into something beyond their understanding, beyond their control. Rin stepped forward, his voice steady. "Commander, we need to think strategically. We've seen what they can do. If there's a chance to avoid complete destruction, we should take it." Thales' fist unclenched slowly. He stared at the comm panel, his face a mask of indecision. Finally, with a deep sigh, he pressed the button to transmit. "Captain Elias," Thales said, his voice heavy with resignation. "We will retreat." The retreat order spread like wildfire through the fleet. Ships disengaged from the battle, engines flaring as they began to pull back from Earth's orbit. The Aegis, battered but intact, turned away from the planet, its course set for the safety of Federation space. As the stars shifted outside the viewport, Rin exhaled, a wave of relief washing over him. They had survived, barely, but something told him this wasn't the end. The Federation wouldn't give up so easily, and humanity wouldn't stop with just a show of force. "This isn't over," Vornak muttered, voicing the thought that had been nagging at Rin's mind. "The Federation won't let this stand." Rin nodded, staring out into the vastness of space. "No, it's not. But next time, we'll be ready." The stars blurred into streaks as the Aegis streaked through warp space, fleeing Earth's orbit. The bridge was eerily silent, the crew too exhausted and shaken to speak. Rin stared out of the viewport, his thoughts racing. They had survived, yes, but the implications of what they had just witnessed were far more dangerous than the battle itself. Across the galaxy, word of the Federation's defeat would spread like wildfire, and with it, tales of humanity's terrifying new weapon, adrenaline. It wasn't just a chemical enhancement. It was a transformation of power so primal that even the Federation's advanced technology had failed to counter it. Yet, as the Aegis fled, the question that gnawed at Rin's mind was, why had the humans let them go? He turned to Vornak, who sat slumped in his seat, nursing his injuries. What do you think the humans want? This doesn't make sense. They had us, Vornak. Why show us mercy? Vornak's gaze was distant, but after a long pause, he spoke, his voice low. It's not about mercy, it's about something bigger. The humans, they're making a statement. What kind of statement? Vornak leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. That they aren't just another species in the galaxy, Rin. They're not playing by our rules anymore. This adrenaline, it's not just a serum. It's their way of telling us that they've evolved beyond anything we've seen. They're warning us if we push them any further, we'll face something far worse than war. Rin shuddered. The truth in Vornak's words was undeniable. This had been more than a battle. It had been a demonstration, a glimpse of what humanity could become. And the worst part, the humans hadn't even unleashed their full power. The threat Captain Elias had made of releasing the serum's full potential still hung over them like a dark cloud. The Federation wouldn't take the retreat lightly. High Command would view it as a humiliation, a defeat that demanded retaliation. But Rin knew that if they came back, if they pushed the humans any further, the consequences could be catastrophic. Suddenly, a transmission crackled to life on the comm system. It was from Federation High Command. Aegis, this is Admiral Kane. Report. Commander Thale stood, his shoulders stiff. Admiral, we engaged human forces at Earth, but... I already know what happened, the Admiral cut him off, his voice cold and sharp. The entire fleet has been briefed on your retreat. I want to know why you didn't fight to the end. Why you allowed these humans to humiliate us. Thale hesitated, his jaw clenching. Admiral, the humans, they've developed a serum, adrenaline, but it's more than that. They've enhanced themselves beyond. I don't want excuses, Commander, Admiral Kane snapped. I want results. We cannot allow humanity to defy us like this. The Federation's authority must be absolute. We're preparing a counterstrike. We'll send reinforcements, new ships, and weapons specifically designed to neutralize their enhancements. Rin's stomach dropped. A counterstrike? After everything they had just witnessed? Admiral, Thale said cautiously, with respect, I don't think that's wise. The humans, if they're pushed any further, they could. They're just humans, the Admiral growled. I don't care how strong or fast they've become. They're still flesh and bone, and they'll break just like any other species. Rin couldn't stay silent any longer. He stepped forward, his voice firm. Admiral, I've seen them up close. We barely survived. If you send another fleet, we'll be walking into a massacre. They let us go, but if we attack again... Enough. Admiral Kane's voice was thunderous. I didn't ask for your opinion, Lieutenant. This conversation is over. Prepare for reinforcements. We'll teach those humans what happens when they defy the Federation. The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in a tense, stunned silence. Rin's heart pounded in his chest. They were going to retaliate. The Federation was walking into a disaster, blinded by pride and arrogance. He could see it now, the death and destruction that would follow, but there was nothing he could do. No way to stop it. Vornak shook his head slowly. Fools. They don't understand what they're dealing with. Rin clenched his fists. He understood. He had seen the fire in the humans' eyes, the raw, untapped potential that lay beneath the surface. This was no longer about war. It was about survival, and not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. Suddenly, the ship's long-range sensors lit up with a warning. Rin's heart skipped a beat as he looked at the display. Incoming transmission from Earth. The image flickered to life on the main screen, revealing Captain Elias once more. His face was calm, but there was a steely determination in his eyes. "We know your fleet is planning a counterstrike," Elias said, his voice unwavering. "Before you make that mistake, I want you to hear this. The serum we've used so far is only the beginning. We have much more. If you push us again, we will unleash it. And not just on our soldiers." Rin's blood ran cold. What did he mean by that? Elias continued, his expression grim. "Adrenaline isn't just for combat. It's in every human. It's part of who we are. You think we've enhanced ourselves? No. We've only unlocked what's always been there. Push us again, and we'll show the galaxy just what humanity is truly capable of. And trust me, when that happens, there will be no going back." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence once again. Rin stood frozen, the weight of Elias's words sinking in. This wasn't just a war. This was evolution, an evolution that could tip the balance of power across the galaxy. Vornak broke the silence, his voice low and filled with grim understanding. "If they release that serum to the rest of their population, the galaxy won't stand a chance." Rin nodded slowly. He understood now. The humans had held back, given them a chance to retreat, to avoid a future where adrenaline-fueled humans weren't just soldiers, but civilians, leaders, scientists, all wielding the unstoppable power of their own biology. If the Federation didn't stand down, they would be unleashing something far worse than a war. And in that moment, Rin knew the truth. Humanity's natural superpower had already terrified the galaxy. Now, it was about to change it forever. The galaxy was changing, and not just in the ways the Federation had anticipated. As word of humanity's adrenaline-fueled capabilities spread, fear seeped into the hearts of alien races. Rin stared out at the stars from the observation deck of the Virulin warship, the relentless hum of the engines a constant reminder of their precarious situation. He had survived the first wave of chaos that humanity had unleashed, but now the stakes were higher than ever. "We can't just sit here and watch," Vornak said, his deep voice breaking through Rin's thoughts. He adjusted the collar of his Federation uniform, the insignia shining against the darkness of space. "They're going to escalate this conflict. We need to act now." Rin turned, eyeing his companion. The tall, armored Virulin had fought valiantly alongside humans in the battle against the mercenaries, but now he was teetering on the brink of an internal conflict. "What do you propose? Another assault on Earth?" "Not an assault," Vornak replied sharply, his crimson eyes narrowing. "A mission to understand. There are whispers of a hidden facility somewhere in the fringes of human space. If we can find it, we may discover the source of this genetic enhancement." Rin frowned. "You mean the serum? What if it's worse than we imagined? What if they're developing more than just adrenaline?" "Exactly," Vornak said, a spark of determination igniting in his voice. "If we can uncover the truth, we can either contain them or prepare for what's to come. We don't have the luxury of waiting." After a tense moment, Rin nodded, a wave of adrenaline washing over him at the thought of the mission ahead. They needed answers, and there was no time to waste. The Federation's command center buzzed with activity as Rin and Vornak arrived. The walls glimmered with holographic displays of star maps and intelligence reports, projections of human advancements that made the hairs on the back of Rin's neck stand on end. "Gentlemen," a stern voice cut through the noise, drawing their attention. Commander Threx, a tall thorax with iridescent skin, stood before them, arms crossed. "You both are aware of the stakes here. Humanity is no longer just a threat. They are a ticking time bomb." Rin met Vornak's gaze, the weight of their mission heavy on both of them. "What's the plan?" Rin asked. "We will send you deep into human territory, cloaked and undetected. Your goal is to locate the facility rumored to be responsible for this genetic serum. Gather intel, and if necessary, disable it." "Disable?" Vornak echoed, his tone incredulous. "You want us to engage with fully enhanced humans? That's a death wish. Only if you're careless, Threx replied, unflinching. Use your skills. Understand them. The Federation has been too quick to label humanity as merely dangerous. They are complex and unpredictable. Rin nodded. The Federation had underestimated humanity once before, but he hoped this time they would find a way to avoid an all-out war. As they prepared to leave, Rin felt the weight of uncertainty settle over him. The mission would take them to a desolate sector of space, rumored to be home to a facility shrouded in secrecy. As they boarded their cloaked ship, the Infiltrator, Rin couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into a nest of vipers. The ship's engines roared to life, and they shot off into the darkness of space. Rin couldn't help but steal glances at Vornak, who was engrossed in monitoring the ship's systems. "Are you ready for this?" Rin asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Vornak turned, a hint of a smile breaking through his stoic demeanor. "I was born ready. But tell me, what do you think we'll find?" "Answers, hopefully," Rin replied. "But we may also uncover something that challenges everything we know about humanity." Vornak nodded, his expression serious. "Then we'll be prepared for whatever awaits us." Days passed in the cold void of space, tension rising as they approached their destination. The sector was filled with debris from long-forgotten battles, and Rin felt a sense of foreboding as they neared the coordinates of the rumored facility. "We're coming up on the location," Vornak announced, fingers flying across the control panel. "I'm detecting multiple energy signatures. It's heavily fortified." "Let's not draw attention," Rin cautioned. "We'll use the cloaking technology to scan the area first." The Infiltrator glided silently among the remnants of ancient spacecraft, and Rin peered through the viewport at the facility that loomed ahead. It was a stark contrast to the war-torn surroundings, gleaming metal, pulsating lights, and the unmistakable hum of advanced technology. "Send a probe," Rin ordered, his heart racing. "We need to gather as much intel as we can before making any moves." As Vornak deployed the probe, Rin watched the feed. They were met with scenes of humans enhanced, armed, and training. The facility was a breeding ground for something far beyond what they had anticipated. The realization sent chills down his spine. "We need to get closer," Vornak said, his voice taut. "We can't leave without knowing what they're truly up to." Rin hesitated but nodded. "All right, let's do this." They maneuvered the Infiltrator into a nearby docking bay, cloaked and ready. As they slipped out of the ship, the air was thick with tension. The facility was buzzing with activity, but something felt off, like a simmering pot about to boil over. "Stay low," Rin whispered, leading the way through the dimly lit corridors. They followed the sound of footsteps and distant voices, each step echoing their urgency. As they turned a corner, they were met with a sight that sent a jolt of shock through Rin. Humans, dozens of them, were gathered in a large chamber, their bodies enhanced beyond recognition. They sparred with each other, their movements a blur of speed and strength. Rin could feel the adrenaline radiating off them, palpable in the air. "We need to find out where they're getting this enhancement," Vornak said, eyes wide with disbelief. "This is beyond anything we've ever seen." Suddenly, a loud alarm blared through the facility, jolting both men into action. "We've been detected," Rin exclaimed. "We have to move." They darted through the facility, narrowly avoiding patrols and security cameras. But the more they explored, the more they realized how deep the enhancement program ran. In every corner, humans were pushed to their limits, and it became clear that the serum was just the beginning. "Rin!" Vornak shouted, pulling him into a shadowed alcove as a group of enhanced humans passed by. "They're training for something. This isn't just about defense. They're preparing for war." "I know," Rin said, a knot forming in his stomach. "We need to find the source of this serum before it's too late." As they pressed on, they stumbled upon a laboratory gleaming and sterile, filled with vials and equipment that looked far too advanced for their current understanding. "This is it," Rin breathed, approaching a terminal. "We might be able to uncover the truth here." "Be quick," Vornak urged, eyes scanning the doorway. "We don't have much time." Rin hacked into the terminal, his fingers flying over the interface. The screen flickered to life, revealing a wealth of information about the serum, its origins, and a startling revelation: it wasn't just adrenaline that had been harnessed. The facility was experimenting with a dormant genetic trait in humanity's DNA, one that had lain hidden for millennia. "Rin, we need to go," Vornak urged, his voice edged with panic. Rin's heart raced as he downloaded the data. "Just a few more seconds. We have to understand what we're dealing with." Suddenly, the door burst open, and a squad of enhanced humans charged in, their eyes glowing with fury. "Stop right there," one of them shouted, muscles rippling under their enhanced skin. Without thinking, Rin lunged for Vornak, dragging him toward a side exit. "Run!" They bolted down a corridor, adrenaline coursing through their veins as they barely evaded their pursuers. The facility was alive with chaos, alarms blaring and lights flashing as they raced against time. "Over there," Vornak pointed to a window leading to the outside. "We can make it." They hurled themselves through the window, landing on the hard ground outside. But the chaos didn't stop there. Enhanced humans poured from the facility, their eyes locked onto Rin and Vornak. "Get to the ship," Rin shouted, adrenaline surging through him. They sprinted toward the infiltrator, Rin's heart pounding in his chest. Just as they reached the ship, a group of enhanced humans cut them off, eyes gleaming with determination. "You can't escape," one of them growled, muscles taut and ready for action. "You have no idea what you're facing." Vornak stepped forward, eyes fierce. "We're not afraid of you." As the humans lunged forward, Rin felt a surge of energy within him, an echo of the serum's power. He fought with everything he had, moving faster, hitting harder. Vornak matched him blow for blow, their partnership igniting an unexpected synergy. With every strike, they pushed back against the overwhelming odds. But it wasn't enough. They were outnumbered and outmatched. Just as the humans began to close in, Rin caught a glimpse of the infiltrator, their only chance for escape. "Now!" Rin shouted, and they made a break for the ship, fighting their way through the chaos. They climbed aboard, sealing the door just as a punch connected against the hull. Rin scrambled to the controls, his hands shaking as he activated the ship's systems. "Vornak, we need to move." The engines roared to life, and the ship lifted off, narrowly avoiding the pursuing humans as they blasted into space. Rin exhaled sharply, heart racing as he turned to Vornak. "We made it," he gasped, relief washing over him. But the moment of triumph was short-lived. "Did you get the data?" Vornak asked, urgency in his voice. Rin nodded, his eyes scanning the terminal. "Yes, but it's worse than we thought. This isn't just a serum. It's tied to something deeper in humanity's genetic history." Vornak's eyes widened. "Then we have to get this information back to the Federation. They need to know the truth." Rin's face hardened. "But can we trust them? They're already scared of humanity. What if they decide to take action?" "Then we prepare for whatever comes next," Vornak said firmly, determination shining in his eyes. "We're not going to let fear dictate the future of the galaxy." As they set a course back to the Federation, Rin felt a sense of foreboding settle over him. The galaxy was on the brink of chaos, and humanity's awakening had only just begun. The knowledge they carried would reshape everything. As the stars streaked past, Ren couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The true battle for the future of the galaxy was about to unfold, and he had a feeling humanity was ready to embrace its destiny. The Federation Council convened in an emergency session, urgency palpable in the air. Rin and Vornak stood before the assembly, their data laid out before them like a ticking time bomb. "We have uncovered the truth," Rin began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "The serum is only the beginning. It's linked to a genetic evolution that humanity is just starting to understand." Gasps echoed through the chamber, and Commander Threx's expression hardened. "What are you suggesting, Rin?" "I'm suggesting that humanity is no longer a simple threat," Vornak interjected, stepping forward. "They are evolving, and if we don't understand this change, We risk an all-out war that could devastate the galaxy." A murmur of discontent rippled through the assembly. "And how do you propose we handle this?" A Zarak council member sneered, skepticism dripping from his words. "By fostering communication," Rin replied, the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. "We can't afford to treat humanity as a threat. We must approach them as allies, partners in this evolution." "What if they refuse?" Threx asked, voice low and cautious. "Then we adapt," Vornak replied. "But we must try. We need to find a way to bridge the gap between our worlds before it's too late." The council deliberated, tensions simmering as factions emerged, some supporting the idea of collaboration while others pushed for a more militaristic approach. But the echoes of Rin's and Vornak's warning hung in the air, a reminder of the fragile balance that existed. Weeks passed as they awaited the council's decision. Tensions mounted and rumors spread throughout the galaxy. Some factions began to rally against humanity, viewing them as a threat that needed to be contained. Rin watched as fear morphed into hostility, a storm brewing in the hearts of those who had once stood united. "We need to act quickly," he said, pacing the command center. "If we wait too long, we'll lose our chance." Vornak nodded, his brow furrowed in thought. "We should reach out to humanity directly, gather their leaders and propose a summit." Rin stopped, meeting Vornak's gaze. "You think they'll trust us after everything that's happened?" "Trust is built through communication," Vornak said firmly. "It's our only chance." With the decision made, they reached out to Earth, sending a message to their leaders, a call for peace amidst the chaos. Days passed, each moment stretching into eternity, and finally, a response came. The summit was set. A neutral location, deep within Federation space, was chosen to facilitate the meeting. Rin and Vornak arrived early, anticipation mingling with dread. The fate of the galaxy hinged on this moment. As the humans arrived, Rin couldn't help but notice the tension in the air. They were led by General Adira, a strong figure who had commanded respect during the previous encounters. Her expression was wary, but there was a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "Welcome," Rin said, extending a hand. "We appreciate you coming." General Adira eyed him warily, but accepted the gesture. "Let's cut to the chase. Why should we trust the Federation after everything that's happened?" "Because we're not here to fight," Vornak interjected, stepping forward. "We're here to understand. Humanity is evolving, and we need to adapt together." The tension in the room thickened as Adira considered their words. "And what if we don't want to collaborate?" Rin felt a surge of frustration, but kept his composure. "Then we risk further escalation. We can't afford to be divided. The galaxy is changing, and we need to be prepared." Adira's gaze hardened. "You think this is just about fear? This is about survival. You have no idea what we've gone through." "We understand more than you think," Vornak replied, a hint of empathy in his voice. "But we're here to offer a path forward, not to dictate terms. Let's work together to find a solution." As the meeting progressed, they delved into discussions about humanity's genetic evolution, the Serum, and the implications for the galaxy. Each side laid bare their fears and hopes, seeking common ground amidst the chaos. But just as it seemed they were making progress, an emergency alert rang through the room, a signal from the outer perimeter of Federation space. "What's happening?" Rin demanded, concern rising in his chest. "The Zarak fleet is mobilizing," an officer reported, eyes wide. "They're preparing for an assault on Earth." Adira's expression turned fierce. "We need to act now. We can't let them start a war." Rin nodded, adrenaline surging. "We'll fight together. This is our chance to prove that collaboration can work." They rushed to the command center, urgency driving them. The Zarak fleet was a formidable force, and their intentions were clear: wipe humanity from the stars. As they prepared for battle, Rin felt the weight of their newfound alliance pressing down on him. "We have to outmaneuver them. If we can flank their forces, we can hold them off long enough for a proper negotiation." Vornak nodded, determination shining in his eyes. We'll coordinate our fleets. We can't let fear dictate our actions. The battle raged in the void of space, lights flashing and explosions echoing through the silence. Rin fought alongside the humans, his heart racing as he maneuvered the infiltrator through the chaos. "Watch your flank," Adira shouted over the comms, her voice steady even amidst the chaos. "On it," Rin replied, feeling the adrenaline coursing through him as he engaged the enemy. The humans fought with a fierce determination, their enhanced abilities pushing them beyond their limits. As the Zarak ships fell one by one, a realization dawned upon Rin. Humanity had harnessed something powerful, and together they could accomplish the unimaginable. In the midst of the battle, they discovered the Zarak fleet was not only after humanity, but also intended to use the chaos to launch a larger offensive against the Federation. Rin and Adira coordinated their forces, pushing back against the advancing enemy. "Rin!" Vornak shouted, urgency thick in his voice. "We need to flank them now." Rin nodded, adrenaline surging as they executed their maneuver. The infiltrator weaved through enemy lines, striking with precision and fury. Rin felt alive, every nerve ending ignited with the thrill of battle. As the last of the Zarak ships fell, Rin and Adira shared a look of victory. "We did it!" Adira exclaimed, relief washing over her. "Together." Rin nodded, the weight of their alliance settling in. "This is just the beginning. We need to solidify this partnership." In the aftermath of the battle, a newfound camaraderie blossomed between humans and the Federation. Rin and Vornak stood before the Council once more, united in their mission. "We've faced adversity together," Rin began, his voice strong. "And we've emerged stronger for it. We cannot let fear dictate our future. We must continue to foster this alliance." Adira stepped forward, her presence commanding. "We've seen what happens when we stand divided. The galaxy is changing, and we must change with it." As the Council deliberated, hope hung in the air like a delicate thread. The road ahead was uncertain, but they stood together, ready to face whatever came next. As time passed, the alliance between humanity and the Federation deepened. They worked together to establish a new order, one built on understanding and collaboration. Rin and Vornak took the lead, forging connections across species, mending the rifts that had threatened to tear them apart. But lurking beneath the surface, a new threat emerged. Rumors spread of a coalition forming among those who feared humanity's rise, determined to crush the burgeoning alliance before it could take root. Rin and Vornak received word of a secret meeting, where factions opposed to the alliance were gathering to plot their next move. They knew they had to act swiftly. "We need to infiltrate that meeting," Vornak said, determination in his voice. "We can't let them gather strength." Rin nodded, adrenaline surging. "We'll need a plan. If we're caught—" "We won't be," Vornak assured him. "We'll gather intel and expose their intentions to the Council." Under the cover of darkness, they set out, slipping into the shadows of the enemy's territory. The meeting took place in a derelict outpost, its halls echoing with whispers of treachery. As they eavesdropped, Rin felt a mix of fear and determination. The words spoken were filled with hatred, a reminder of the danger that lurked just beneath the surface. "They think they can evolve and become our equals," one voice spat. "We must show them their place." Rin clenched his fists, rage igniting within him. "We can't let this continue." Vornak nodded, his expression resolute. "We'll gather enough evidence to present to the Council. They need to see the true threat." As they prepared to leave, a guard spotted them. "Intruders!" he shouted, and chaos erupted. Rin and Vornak fought their way through the enemy ranks, adrenaline coursing through their veins. "Move!" Rin shouted, pushing forward as they navigated the labyrinth of the outpost. The alarms blared, alerting the entire base to their presence. They burst through the exit just as reinforcements arrived, narrowly escaping the clutches of their enemies. Panting and battered, they made their way back to the Federation, the weight of their discovery pressing heavily on their shoulders. In the council chamber, The tension was palpable as Rin and Vornak presented their findings. "This coalition is forming with the intent to destroy the Alliance," Rin stated, anger fueling his voice. "We can't allow them to succeed." The council erupted in debate, factions clashing as they weighed their options. But amidst the chaos, Rin spotted a familiar face, General Adira, her expression fierce. "We need to act," she said, stepping forward. "If we don't stand united, we risk losing everything we've fought for." With renewed determination, they formed a plan to counter the rising threat. Rin and Vornak worked closely with Adira, coordinating their forces for a decisive strike against the coalition before it could gain any momentum. As they prepared for battle, Rin felt a surge of hope. They were not alone in this fight. The Alliance had grown stronger, and they would face whatever came next together. The coalition gathered its forces, underestimating the unity forged between humans and the Federation. As the two sides clashed, Rin fought fiercely alongside Adira, Vornak, and their allies. The battle raged, but this time Rin felt a fire igniting within him. They fought not just for survival, but for a future where their worlds could coexist. "Push forward," Adira shouted, leading the charge. With every strike, Rin felt the power of their alliance. They would not back down, and as the coalition began to falter, he knew they were proving a point. As the dust settled and the remnants of the coalition were scattered, Rin stood alongside Adira and Vornak, gazing out at the aftermath of their victory. They had faced a formidable enemy and emerged stronger for it. "This is just the beginning," Vornak said, his voice filled with determination. "We've shown the galaxy that unity is stronger than division." Rin nodded, a sense of purpose swelling within him. "We will continue to build this alliance. Together, we can face whatever challenges lie ahead." As they returned to the Federation, Rin knew that the journey was far from over. The galaxy was vast, and their newfound alliance was just the start of something incredible. Humanity had proven its worth, and Rin felt a sense of hope for the future. They would forge a path together, one that would redefine the very fabric of the galaxy. In the face of adversity, they had found strength. Together, they would stand as guardians of peace, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them among the stars. The alliance between humanity and the Federation had forged a new era of cooperation, but peace was fragile. Rin, Vornak, and Adira knew they had to nurture this bond carefully. The galaxy remained a vast and unpredictable expanse, and old prejudices lingered in the shadows, threatening to destabilize their hard-earned unity. Months after their victory over the coalition, a new challenge arose. Intelligence reports indicated that remnants of the coalition were regrouping, seeking to exploit the unrest among various species that still viewed humanity with suspicion. Rin received an urgent message from Commander Threx, calling for an emergency council meeting. As Rin, Vornak, and Adira entered the council chamber, a sense of foreboding settled over them. The tension was palpable. Members of the council were divided, some still wary of humanity's rapid evolution and its implications. "We need to address the growing dissent among the factions," Threx began, his voice steady. "The coalition has not been fully dismantled, and rumors of their resurgence are spreading." "Then we must act quickly," Rin interjected. "We can't let fear take root again. We need to send a clear message that unity is our strength." "What do you propose?" a Curel council member questioned, skepticism evident in his tone. "We should establish a diplomatic outreach program," Adira suggested. "Let's engage with the factions that remain hostile towards humanity. We can demonstrate our intentions and build trust through dialogue." "That will take time," Threx replied, weighing the risks. "Meanwhile, we risk allowing the coalition to gain strength. If we act impulsively, we may escalate the situation further," Vornak cautioned. "We must be strategic in our approach." With the council in agreement, they set a plan into motion. Rin took the lead on the diplomatic outreach, traveling to various planets within the Federation. He met with representatives from different species, sharing knowledge about humanity's evolution and showcasing the benefits of collaboration. In one meeting with a Zealoth delegation, Rin stood before a table filled with dignitaries, each wearing expressions of skepticism. "I understand your fears regarding humanity's rapid development," he began, his voice steady. "But this evolution isn't a threat. It's an opportunity for us all. Together, we can face challenges that none of us can tackle alone." The room remained silent, tension thick. But Rin continued, sharing stories of their recent victories and the strength found in unity. As he spoke, he noticed a flicker of interest in their eyes, a glimmer of hope. Back on the Federation capital, Vornak and Adira worked tirelessly to reinforce the Alliance's military readiness. They knew that while diplomacy was essential, they had to remain vigilant against potential attacks from the Coalition. "Are we prepared for a worst-case scenario?" Adira asked, reviewing the tactical plans. Vornak nodded, his expression serious. "We have bolstered our defenses and trained joint task forces. If the Coalition strikes, we will be ready to respond." Adira sighed, her brow furrowed. "We can't let history repeat itself. We need to show the galaxy that we are a united front." Days turned into weeks, and Rin's outreach began to yield results. Some factions, influenced by his message, started to warm up to the idea of collaboration. Yet, not all were swayed. A Zarak faction leader, known for his aggressive stance against humanity, refused to meet. Rin knew they needed to address this head-on. "We must confront this faction directly," he told Vornak and Adira. "If we don't, we'll be perceived as weak." "Agreed," Vornak replied. "Let's coordinate a meeting and ensure our forces are prepared in case tensions escalate." When the day of the meeting arrived, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. Rin and Adira stood in front of the Zarak leader, a towering figure named Gorath, whose reputation for ruthlessness preceded him. "You come here, expecting us to accept your so-called alliance?" Gorath growled, his tone dripping with disdain. "You think we've forgotten how humanity has tried to claim its place among the stars?" Rin met his gaze, unwavering. "We're here to offer a path forward, Gorath. The galaxy is changing, and humanity is evolving. We can't afford to be divided by old grudges." Gorath leaned forward, a dangerous glint in his eyes. "What do you offer in exchange for our trust?" "Respect," Adira interjected. "We want to understand your perspective. We're not here to dominate. We're here to collaborate." The room fell silent, the tension thick enough to cut. Gorath regarded them with suspicion, but Rin sensed a flicker of interest beneath the surface. As the discussion progressed, it became clear that Gorath's faction was driven by fear of losing power and influence in a galaxy that was rapidly changing. Rin seized the moment, leveraging this vulnerability. "We can't change the past, but we can shape the future," he said, his voice steady. "Join us, and we can create a new order, one where we all have a seat at the table." Gorath remained silent, pondering their words. After a long pause, he nodded slowly. "Perhaps there is merit to your proposal, but know this: if you betray our trust, the consequences will be dire." Rin exchanged a glance with Adira and Vornak, relief washing over him. "We won't. This is a new beginning for all of us." The alliance seemed stronger than ever as Rin, Adira, and Vornak worked tirelessly to expand their diplomatic efforts. They had secured a fragile peace with Gorath's faction, and hope flickered in the hearts of many. However, beneath the surface, dissent continued to brew. News of the Coalition's remnants, gathering in secret, reached their ears. They were forming alliances of their own, determined to reignite the conflict that Rin and his allies had fought so hard to quell. "Rin, we can't ignore these reports," Adira said one evening, concern etched on her face. "If they're regrouping, we need to act fast." "I agree," Rin replied, his thoughts racing. "But we also need to ensure that our alliance remains intact. We can't let fear dictate our actions." "Then we should prepare for both diplomacy and conflict," Vornak suggested. "We can gather intel on their movements while reinforcing our defenses." Rin nodded, determination surging within him. "We need to get ahead of this before it spirals out of control." Weeks passed, and tensions simmered as Rin's diplomatic outreach faced obstacles. Some factions remained resistant to the idea of collaboration, viewing humanity as a threat. Yet, Rin pressed on, hoping to sway their opinions. During a visit to a remote planet, Rin met with a group of Tellurians known for their isolationist policies. They had avoided all political entanglements, but Rin believed they could be swayed to join the alliance. "You misunderstand our position, human," the Tellurian leader, Kalar, said, his tone dismissive. "We seek no involvement in your affairs." "But your isolation won't protect you forever," Rin replied, urgency in his voice. "The coalition is a real threat, and if they succeed in their plans, they won't stop at Earth. We all share this galaxy." Kalar's eyes narrowed, considering Rin's words. "Perhaps you speak the truth, but what guarantee do we have that your alliance will last?" Rin leaned forward, his heart racing. "Because we're building something new, something that will endure beyond old prejudices. But we need you. We need everyone." Back at the Federation, Vornak and Adira were busy fortifying their defenses. News of a potential attack from the coalition loomed ever closer, and the urgency of their preparations escalated. "Adira, we need to ensure our forces are ready," Vornak stated, reviewing the tactical plans. "If they strike, we can't afford to be caught off guard." Adira nodded, her expression fierce. "We'll position our fleets strategically. We can't let them gain a foothold." But as they strategized, whispers of betrayal echoed through the council chambers. Some members were growing restless, feeling that humanity's rise was a threat to their own power. "Rin's outreach may be misguided," one council member asserted. "We must consider our own interest first." "Unity is our strength," Adira shot back, her voice filled with conviction. "If we fracture now, we risk losing everything." As Rin continued his diplomatic efforts, he sensed a growing divide among the factions. Some remained resistant to the alliance, and rumors of betrayal began to circulate. Trust was dwindling, and time was running out. One evening, as he returned to his quarters, he received a clandestine message from an informant within the coalition. They had discovered a plan to attack the Federation capital, aimed at disrupting the alliance and sowing chaos. "Rin, we need to move fast," the informant urged, fear evident in their voice. "The coalition is plotting an assault, and they aim to strike soon." Rin's heart raced as he processed the information. "We need to inform Vornak and Adira immediately. This could change everything." In the command center, Rin gathered Vornak and Adira, urgency thick in the air. "We have intel on a coalition attack. They're planning to strike the capital." Vornak's expression hardened. "We need to prepare our defenses immediately, gather our forces." "But we also need to warn the council," Adira insisted. "They must understand the gravity of the situation." As they rushed to the council chamber, Rin couldn't shake the feeling that their enemies were already one step ahead. They burst into the room, where the council was in heated debate. "Council," Rin called out, commanding attention. "We have crucial information about an impending attack from the coalition. We must act now." "What proof do you have?" a skeptical council member questioned. "Proof?" Rin's voice rose with urgency. "We have an informant." Before he could finish, the alarms blared throughout the chamber, a warning echoing ominously. Chaos erupted as the warning sirens blared, the council chamber thrown into disarray. Rin, Vornak, and Adira moved swiftly, rallying the council members to safety. "We need to get to the command center," Adira shouted over the clamor. "We must coordinate our defense." As they navigated the corridors, Rin's heart raced. The coalition had launched their attack, and they were in the eye of the storm. Would their alliance hold strong in the face of such overwhelming force? When they reached the command center, the scene was frenetic. Officers were scrambling to assess the situation, screens flashing with reports of enemy ships breaching Federation space. "Rin, we need a strategy," Vornak said, his eyes scanning the chaos. "If we don't act quickly, we'll be overwhelmed." Form a defensive perimeter, Adira commanded, taking charge. We can't let them reach the capital. As they implemented their plan, Rin felt a surge of adrenaline. They had faced battles before, but this felt different. The very foundation of their alliance was at stake. Reports flooded in as the coalition's forces advanced. Rin worked closely with Vornak and Adira, coordinating responses and rallying their troops. Each skirmish tested their resolve, but the spirit of unity among the Federation's forces was palpable. "Hold the line," Rin shouted as they pushed back against the advancing enemy. "We fight for our future." But as the battle raged, Rin couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal lurking in the shadows. Could there be spies among them? Hours passed in a blur of combat and chaos. Rin fought alongside Adira and Vornak, their bond strengthening with every challenge they faced. Yet the coalition was relentless, pushing them to the brink. In the midst of the fray, Rin spotted a familiar figure. Gorath, the Zerak leader, was fighting alongside the coalition, a betrayal that cut deep. "Why, Gorath?" Rin shouted over the din, anger fueling his voice. "We stood together." Gorath smirked, a dangerous gleam in his eyes. "You thought you could reshape the galaxy, human? Your evolution threatens us all." Rin felt a surge of determination. "We're not your enemy. We fight for a future where we all coexist." As the battle reached its peak, Rin pushed forward, facing Gorath head-on. The Zerak leader was fierce, but Rin felt the strength of his allies behind him. "Together, we can create something greater," Rin shouted, his resolve unwavering. Gorath hesitated, and in that moment of doubt, Rin seized the opportunity. With a swift strike, he knocked Gorath off balance, forcing him to reconsider. As the coalition began to falter, Rin sensed a shift in the tide. Adira and Vornak fought fiercely by his side, each moment of their unity reinforcing their purpose. "Don't let up," Adira shouted, her voice ringing out. "We've come too far to lose now." Just as victory seemed within reach, a sudden explosion rocked the command center, sending shockwaves through the air. Rin staggered, but quickly regained his footing. "Check for injuries," he shouted, helping to pull officers to safety as chaos unfolded. As they regrouped, Vornak's expression turned grim. "We need to take down their command ship. If we can disrupt their leadership, we can end this fight." The battle intensified as Rin, Adira, and Vornak devised a daring plan to infiltrate the coalition's command ship. It was a risk, but they had to strike at the heart of their enemy. "Rin, you'll lead the infiltration team," Adira instructed, determination etched on her face. "We need someone with your experience to get in and out quickly." "I won't let you down," Rin replied, adrenaline coursing through his veins. As they prepared for the mission, the atmosphere crackled with tension. They gathered a small team of elite soldiers, each one committed to the cause. When the time came to launch the assault, Rin led the charge, slipping through the chaos of the battlefield. Their ship landed undetected near the coalition command ship, and they stealthily moved through the corridors. "Stay alert," Rin whispered to his team. "We need to reach the control center and shut down their systems." As they navigated the ship's dark halls, they encountered pockets of enemy soldiers. Rin's training kicked in, and he led his team with precision, taking down foes before they could sound the alarm. Finally, they reached the control center, a sprawling room filled with monitors displaying the ongoing battle. Rin felt a surge of hope as they prepared to strike. "Let's disable their systems," he commanded. "We need to send a message." As his team got to work, Rin scanned the monitors, searching for any sign of Gorath. The Zerak leader had to be here, and Rin knew that a confrontation was inevitable. Just as they finished disabling the systems, Gorath appeared, flanked by his guards. "Did you really think you could sabotage our command?" he taunted, a smug grin on his face. Rin stepped forward, defiance in his voice. "This isn't just about sabotage. It's about a future we can build together. You've aligned yourself with hatred and fear." Gorath's expression darkened. "You will regret this, human. Your kind is not welcome here." With a swift motion, Gorath lunged at Rin, the two clashing in a fierce battle. Rin fought with all his might, fueled by the belief in their alliance. As they grappled, Rin felt the weight of their struggles, the burden of their fight for a better future. He couldn't let Gorath win, not now, when everything was at stake. With a final burst of strength, Rin disarmed Gorath, knocking him to the ground. It's time to choose a different path. Gorath glared up at him, a mix of rage and confusion in his eyes. You think this is over? You cannot erase the past. No, Rin replied, extending a hand to help him up. But we can shape our future together. With Gorath subdued, Rin signaled to his team to finalize their mission. They disabled the command ship's systems and initiated a transmission to the Federation. We've secured the command ship. Sending the message now, one of his team members announced, a note of triumph in his voice. Let's finish this, Adira said over the comms, her resolve echoing through their connection. As the coalition's forces scrambled, confusion spread through their ranks. The tides of battle shifted, and Rin's allies began to gain the upper hand. As they made their escape, Rin couldn't help but feel the weight of their victory. They had proven that unity could overcome even the deepest of divides. Back at the Federation capital, the Council convened to discuss their next steps. Rin, Adira, and Vornak presented their findings, along with Gorath, who was reluctantly willing to share the Coalition's inner workings. This is a turning point, Vornak asserted, addressing the Council. With Gorath's help, we can dismantle what remains of the Coalition and solidify our alliance. Rin nodded in agreement. It's time for us to work together, not just for ourselves, but for the future of the galaxy. With Gorath's knowledge and their newfound unity, the Federation launched a campaign to root out the remnants of the Coalition. They worked tirelessly, dismantling their infrastructure and exposing their plans. As the dust settled, Rin stood alongside Adira and Vornak, watching as former enemies came together. They had forged alliances, proving that unity was stronger than division. In the aftermath, Rin felt a sense of accomplishment. The road ahead would be challenging, but they had created a foundation built on trust and understanding. As they looked out at the stars, Rin knew that the journey was just beginning. The galaxy was vast, and there were countless worlds waiting to embrace the future they had fought for. Months turned into years, and the alliance flourished. Rin, Adira, and Vornak became symbols of hope, leading the charge toward a new era of cooperation among the galaxy's diverse species. As they celebrated the anniversary of their alliance, Rin addressed a crowd of representatives from countless worlds. Today, we stand together not as separate factions, but as guardians of a brighter future. Cheers erupted, a testament to their shared journey. Let this be a reminder, Rin continued, that even in the darkest of times, unity can light the way. Together, we are stronger, and together, we can achieve greatness. As the celebration continued, Rin felt a deep sense of pride. They had weathered storms, faced betrayals, and emerged victorious. The galaxy was changing, and the power of cooperation had become undeniable. With Adira and Vornak by his side, Rin gazed at the stars, knowing that their fight for a better future was far from over. They would face new challenges, but now they had the strength of an alliance that spanned the galaxy. We're just getting started, Rin said, a smile spreading across his face. And as the sun set on their world, a new dawn broke, full of promise and potential, a testament to the resilience of unity in the face of adversity.